Hi sixth formers. So today we're going to be looking at the poem Remember by Rossetti, and our LO today is to consider how love and relationships are presented in Rossetti's poems. So firstly, can you make sure that you have obviously the poem in front of you, some highlighters, pens, etc., and the grid that you should have, so that as we go through you can fill those in. Now, as mentioned, last time we did the context of Rossetti, so this time we're just going to do a quick quiz just to see how much we've taken in of that. So I'll read the questions to you. Do feel free to just write your answers in note form somewhere or in the chat, depending on the lesson type you're doing. So, number one, what job did Christina Rossetti's father have? And it's worth 2 marks. Number 2, what did Rossetti's mother do, and what effect did this job have on her early childhood, as in Christina's early childhood? Number 3, what happened to Rossetti at 14 years old? Number 4, what religion did she and her mother and sister become absorbed into? And I'd like the specific religion there, please. Number 5, how many engagements did she have, as in Christina have? And why did the first one break down? Now, instead of engagements, I will take relationships as well, because there are some that are dubious of whether there was an engagement or not. Worth 2 marks. And number 6, what 2 humanitarian services did Rossetti undertake? So she did 2 types of almost voluntary work. What were they? Okay. Your teacher will go through the answers with you. So the answers, and your teacher will explain them as we go. Number 1, the dad was a Dante scholar and a teacher of Italian. Number 2, the mother was a governess, and this meant that she taught Christina Rossetti and her siblings to ensure intellectual excellence. Number 3, at 14, Rossetti had a nervous breakdown. Number 4, Christina, the mum and the sister were part of the Anglo-Catholic movement within the Church of England. Number 5, she had 3 engagements, and the first one failed because he reverted to Catholicism. And number 6, she took over from her aunt in district visiting, providing assistance to the sick and poor of the parish, and she also volunteered at the St Mary Magdalene Penitentiary in Highgate with fallen women. If you've got something along those lines, of course, give yourself a mark. Okay, so this is the poem we're going to be looking at today. The poem is called Remember, and it is an elegiac poem, which is it's a complicated poem in the sense that when she wrote it, she was only 18 years old, and that's quite an odd idea, that if you were writing this poem now, you're looking in a very almost non-optimistic, depressing way. There are elements of optimism towards the end, etc., but ultimately for an 18-year-old to write this is quite unusual. So I'll read the poem to you, and I'd like you to consider the questions to the side. So the form, a summary, what do you think it's about, and any contextual links that you think might relate to this. So think about the fact that I've told you it's an early poem. So it's 1849 it was written. So she was 18. So what happened, 18 and just before, in the previous couple of years that may have impacted the content of this poem. Okay, so remember. Remember me when I am gone away. Gone far away into the silent land, when you can no more hold me by the hand, nor I half turn to go, yet turning stay. remember me when no more day by day. You tell me of our future that you planned, only remember me. You understand it will be late to counsel then or pray, yet if you should forget me for a while, and afterwards remember, do not grieve. For if the darkness and corruption leave a vestige of the thoughts that once I had, better by far you should forget and smile, than you should remember and be sad. Okay, so the questions to the side I've put for the form, does it fit with a Petrarchan sonnet's usual conventions? So it's 14 lines long, but think about the Petrarchan sonnet conventions. Summary, so what is it about? And obviously the contextual links. So it's an early poem. Think about what that means. Okay, so a summary of the poem, very brief summary. Obviously, we'll go into more depth as we go through the poem. So, summary: the poem's speaker appears to be approaching death and addresses the beloved who remains, telling him/her, because of course it's an unnamed beloved, to remember the speaker. If, however, the beloved momentarily forgets the speaker, they shouldn't feel guilty. The speaker would rather that the beloved was happy in forgetting than made sad by remembering. So it's this idea that the speaker is writing as though they're dying, or has approaching death, and is basically saying to their lover, if you forget me, that's okay as long as you're happy. I would rather you be happy in the future than be, made miserable by constantly remembering me and the fact that I'm no longer with you. Okay, so you've got to consider that from a contextual point of view. Of course, she's only 18. Now, you've had the nervous breakdown when she was 14, and, that constant sense of sadness and worry and anxiety. She obviously had health issues as well, linked to those ideas. And then, of course, she joined the Anglo-Catholic element of the church. And again, that's very... what's the word I'm looking for? Very black and white. So it's quite, it's not a depressing poem in the sense that she does want the lover to be happy, but it's almost sad to the point of us as a contemporary reader that an 18-year-old is thinking like this. The themes within the poem then are the role of women. So remember can be seen as highlighting the passive role expected of women in Victorian society. If the speaker is female, we see her as the recipient of the dominant male's actions, who holds on to and possesses her, talks at her, lays down what the future is will hold for her, and advises her. So basically, the speaker is being told what to do by the other person. So if it's this male-female kind of role, it's this passivity of women that is highlighted. In light of this, perhaps the speaker's inner thoughts come from a dark place and are rebellious and resentful of this treatment. They may well trouble the beloved, who can only smile if he ignores them. Okay. Another theme is grief. Considering the high mortality rate in Victorian Britain, it's fair that Rossetti herself, like most early readers, would have experienced some death, whether that of a parent, sibling, friend, or a lover. Although her devotional writings express a firm hope in the promises of heaven and eternal life that the Bible offers, many of Rossetti's non-devotional poems attempt to reconcile this hope with the emotion of grief that is natural when a person loses someone close to them through death. So this is not a devotional poem. A devotional poem is, devoting yourself to God and religion, etc. So this poem is more reconciling that idea that, grief is going to happen when someone dies. Just because, it might be God's will, etc., doesn't mean it's not sad for the people left behind. And the last theme, of course, is prayer. The speaker suggests that when she's dead, it will be too late to pray for her. Whilst the Roman Catholic tradition teaches that prayers should be offered for the people that have died, offering prayers for the dead is not encouraged in the Anglican Church. They're very much when you're dead kind of view. By claiming that it's too late to pray for her once she has gone away, the speaker emphasises the urgency of prayers offered in the present day. So essentially, appreciate me while I'm here, pray for me while I'm here, but when I'm dead, I'm gone. Do with that what you will. Okay, so the first 4 lines then. So remember me when I am gone away, gone far away into the silent land, when you can no more hold me by the hand, nor I half turn to go yet turning stay. So the context that I've put in the bright yellow at the top is the inability to accept death is common pre-Raphaelite philosophy. That is just, that's just the context at the time. They didn't like to accept death. Oh, I mean, obviously they had to. Death happens, but it wasn't an easy acceptance. It was very difficult to reconcile that idea with them. And so, remember me when I am. So it's obviously first person, so me, the pronoun me, and it addresses the man, or I mean, it could be man, woman. I go down the school of it's a female speaker to a male because I like the idea of the passivity of women being demonstrated in this poem as well. However, there is no evidence to that. So when I'm saying man, woman, you can put woman, woman, man, man, etc. But remember me when I met. So first person addresses the man immediately, and it is an imperative phrase that is repeated throughout the poem. It's an order from the speaker, from Rossetti to him, therefore implying it is really important to her that he remembers her. Okay. Gone away, gone far away. The repetition of the idea of gone away to, emphasize this vast expanse between life and death. It's not just gone away to the shops, it's gone away. They're gone. So that's really emphasizing that difference in location, I suppose you could say. Silent land, silent emphasizes the loneliness associated with death. When you're dead, you're silent. Simple as that, really. When you can no more hold me by the hand. So it's a euphemistic way of saying when I'm dead, it softens the blow and romanticizes the idea. So rather than saying gone away into the silent land when I'm dead, blah, 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 instead they've used that euphemism to soften what they're trying to say, to make it a less blunt way of saying it. And again, that links back to the context. They don't like to accept death, so making it a nicer way of saying it is one way of getting around that. And it also might be referencing the idea of a hand in marriage, and when dead, obviously that bond is broken. They're dead. They can't be till death do us part because they're dead now. And Nora half turned to go, yet turning stay. It demonstrates this reluctance to leave. Life was fragile for Victorians, and Rossetti was also ill, and therefore death did occupy her thoughts. So she doesn't want to die, but in this Victorian society, it could very easily happen. Okay, I've done some questions there for you. So I've given you the line numbers I'm talking about, and you might want to spend a couple of minutes just having a think to yourself and writing a few notes around the poem. So in line 6, I've put, why is there the repetition of you? Line 8, why is it too late to pray? Line 9, how has the tone changed here in the Volta? From what to what? And how does the internal rhyme scheme help this? In line 10, why use another imperative? Line 11 to the end, what is Rossetti actually trying to say? Line 13, what does she wish for the listener? And line 14, final line, how does the poem end? What's the tone? And how has her argument changed? Okay, so you might want to pause the video and give yourself a few minutes to consider your ideas. Okay, so moving on from the next 4 lines of the poem, because of course we've already done the first 4. So, remember me when no more day by day. You tell me of our future that you planned. Only remember me. You understand. It will be late to counsel, then or pray. So again, you've got the refrain of remember me. That imperative is repeated. Remember me, remember me. Again, demonstrating how important it is to her that she is remembered. And then day by day, the repetition of the noun day, it emphasises how her life is being prolonged. which is somewhat ironic as Rossetti is imagining her death. Bear in mind, the speaker is writing this when they're still alive. So they're just imagining their death and imagining what will happen in the future. So remember me when no more day by day. So hopefully, you could argue she's wanting there to be lots and lots of days, hence the emphasis, before they ever have to come to this crossroads. But at the same point, maybe not. You tell me of a future that you planned. The irony of the word planned, because of course you can't plan death. Death is completely unplanned and can occur at any point. It is completely uncontrollable. So therefore the future that maybe he or she had planned therefore is pointless because it doesn't happen. You've got the caesura in the third line, so only remember me, that semicolon there. It separates the me and the you, again symbolising the distance between the living and the dead, the literal break between them. It also separates the emotional plea of remembering and the logical thought of understanding. So in the first part of the third line in that section, it's only remember me, and then the next part is you understand. Understanding things is very logical, and needs a thought process. Remembering someone is very emotional. It's desperate. It wants them to have this emotional pang towards them. So it again demonstrates that difference between the two of them. And lastly, it will be late to counsel then or pray. So the use of counsel and prayer suggests a spiritual connection between the speaker and the listener, implying that the listener is concerned for the sake of the state of the speaker's soul. The claim that after death it will be too late to pray indicates that the speaker just wants to be remembered. And also, you've got to remember, it doesn't encourage the Church, the Anglican Church, linking to the context box there, does not encourage praying for the dead. So again, she's expressing this idea. Yet, if you should forget me for a while, and afterwards remember, do not grieve. For if darkness and corruption leave a vestige of the thoughts that once I had. So you've got the internal rhyme there and the top line there, so yet and forget, and it emphasises the beginning of the volta, the change in the tone. So it's almost like, okay, so the first 8 lines are all, here's what we've planned, here's what I want you to remember me. And then this volta is sort of, but if you do forget, that yet, in case you do. So she's almost accepting that it might happen that at one point she might be forgotten. So yet if you should forget me for a while. So slowly her words linger over the idea that it would not be such a terrible thing. It would allow the lover, the man, woman, whoever, to be happy if for a moment they did forget her, because otherwise they're constantly mourning someone's death. And the speaker almost overcomes her fear of being forgotten to admit that actually maybe him forgetting is the ideal situation for them, because it brings him happiness, or allows him to feel happiness. And then if you've got you've got the darkness and corruption. So this is a comment on the grief and burden of earthly life. Rossetti is content that her lover forgets his pain. Corruption also can refer to the process of decomposition of dead bodies. Her earthly remains after her spirit leaves him. So essentially, on earth is her corpse, essentially, and her spirit has left. So what's the purpose of mourning forevermore? And final 2 lines, better by far you should forget and smile than that you should remember and be sad. So the context link is, of course, Rossetti struggled with depression, and so she wanted to spare her lover such pain, perhaps. She doesn't want everyone to live in the same misery that she did, or does, when she's writing this. And the first line there, she wishes for her beloved to be happy, even if that means forgetting her. Then you've got the final use of the word remember in that final line, does not have me afterwards. So all the way through the rest of the poem, it's been remember me, remember me. But this final time she uses the verb remember, it's not followed by me, as if to demonstrate that the link between the two lovers is broken now. he doesn't have to just remember her. And the final word, the poem ends with almost peace and acceptance. The rhyme of had from previously and sad also gives this feeling of resolution. When there's this perfect rhyme, there is a feeling of resolution and completion at the end of a poem. So in some ways it's a sad poem that she's feeling she has to write this. But actually, ultimately, the end, it's almost a peaceful end to the poem. That, you know what, if I die, you don't need to mourn me forever. You can forget me and smile for a moment, and you shouldn't feel guilt about that. So here's an example paragraph for you. So how is death presented in Rossetti's Remember? So Rossetti presents death as a powerful force that is initially difficult to accept, but its associated misery can be overcome. The opening imperative, remember me, that is repeated throughout the poem, demonstrates the importance of Rossetti's message and how her instructions should be followed. The following euphemistic, gone far away into the silent land, explores the vast expanse between life and death through the adjective far, while the adjective silent has connotations of isolation and fearfulness. This relates to Rossetti's own views, who, writing this in her late teenage years, had fully integrated herself with the pre-Raphaelite philosophies, including the notion that death was difficult to accept. Death, from the outset, therefore, is shown negatively, and thus within the Volta where Rossetti wishes her beloved to forget and smile, indicates that it should be dismissed in place of life. Okay, so you'll see where I've highlighted in different colours, quotes in red, context in green, and terminology, etc., in blue. This is not, the perfect paragraph, of course it's not, but this is sort of what you need to be doing. Lots of quotes integrated with the context, etc. But of course in the real exam you'll be using another poem to answer the question as well. On the slide there is some further research that you might want to do. So the first video is a YouTube video, line by line analysis of Remember Me. This is geared towards a GCSE kind of level because some schools study Remember Me at GCSE. However, it is a strong starting point if you're truly stuck with the poem and have no idea what's going on in it. I will say though that the YouTube video doesn't discuss any context at all, and you must remember, you must include context in your analysis. And the second link is the cross-references link, and it's basically detailed notes of the poem, particularly focusing on the structure and the tone, which you might want to add to your notes. Okay, home learning. I will leave this down to your teacher as to whether they set this or not. You could be writing another paragraph to the essay, or analysing the next section of the poem in relation to death. And next lesson we'll be looking at the poem Some Ladies Dress in Muslin, Full and White, and considering Rossetti's use of satire.